Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kenny, and I am the owner of Robinson Handy and Technology Services. Today, we are answering a question that I saw in one of the DIYer Facebook groups that I'm in. Let's get started. The question that was asked by the user is, or rather, it goes along the lines of, installed a new fan which is controlled by a remote. The light and fan have been randomly coming on even if I take the batteries out of the remote. Any ideas where to start investigating? Yes, I know there's spelling errors in it, but I literally copied and pasted this particular question in here. So spelling errors and grammar errors aside, what is the problem? Well, having installed ceiling fans before and several of them having remote ceiling fans or remote controls with them, the problem with this is that the remotes and the receivers have what they're called dip switches. And those dip switches look like this. They're inside, usually on the remote, they're behind the battery cover. And on a receiver, they're usually just, there's a hole somewhere on the receivers where you have access, and you will see something similar to this. It may have 8, it may have 4, but it's something similar to what this looks like right here. And they may be different colors. As you see, they come in different colors: blue, black, red. You get the idea. And basically what you have to do is, those dip switches are basically like a key, or for those of you that are familiar with Wi-Fi, it's essentially like the password, although not as secure, but it's like the password from your Wi-Fi and your phone or computer, whatever. Your computer has to have the password in order to talk to the Wi-Fi. Likewise, the remote has to have the same password that the receiver has in order to communicate and the receiver respond to said communication. That being said, if your dip switches are set to 1, 3, 4, and your receiver is set to 1, 2, 3, then the receiver is not going to respond because it knows that signal was not for that particular fan. Now, the problem is when they test these remote and receiver combinations at the factory, usually they'll set them to, like, they have a default factory setting. And if you actually read the instructions, or at least in my experience, in reading the instructions to install that ceiling fan and part of that remote setup, is it says these are the settings that are default from the factory. Be sure to change them when you install this fan. And the reason being is because if everybody had the same factory settings on their ceiling fan, I could be in my house and turn the light on, and that signal can travel far enough that it could reach the neighbor's house and turn the fan on in the neighbor's house if they use the default settings. What you have to do is you have to go in and change these dip switch settings to something completely random, and then you have to do it on the remote and the receiver, and these two dip settings have to match. So if you pick 1, 3, 4 for the remote, the receiver has to have 1, 3, 4, and that will change what is included in the signal. And hopefully you don't pick 1, 3, 4 and your neighbor has also picked 1, 3, 4. But if that is the case, then you just go and pick another combination of numbers. And it may take you 1 or 2 tries to get it, but usually after the second try, you'll probably get it. Worst case scenario, you have to do it a third time. But like I say, from my experience, you do it the first time, you may not have any problems. You do it a second time, you definitely should not have any problems unless you and your neighbor think very close alike. And the same thing would go, not only does this apply to if your neighbor has the same ceiling fan and has the same combination, but even if you have the same ceiling fan, because a lot of times when they build new houses or people upgrade houses, they will buy 4 or 5, however many of the same thing, and put them in each of the rooms. And then when it goes to, hey, I'm gonna go in the master bedroom or the primary bedroom and turn the light on, well, then the light comes on in the other 2 bedrooms in the house, and you're like, well, why is that happening? It's because the default dip setting or dip switch setting is still in place and it needs to be changed. That being said, now there are some manufacturers that do have remote ceiling fan controls, and the way they set them up is that the remote and the receiver are paired at the factory, and there are no dip switch settings to change. If you have one of these particular setups, that remote and that receiver are paired together. If you at some point decide, hey, I want to, the receiver has gone bad, you have to get another remote and receiver pair. You can't just swap them out if they don't have the dip settings in there, because they're paired at the factory, like they're pre-programmed and don't have the ability to change that programming. Now, again, from my experience, the Hampton Bay ceiling fans, they are pre-programmed from the factory, so you can't change those. I'm not particularly sure what brand this particular poster bought of ceiling fan that he bought, but some do that, some don't. That's just how that works. All right, so again, if your fan is coming on randomly, it's more than likely because somebody has the same combination that you do. Go and change the dip switch settings and you should be good to go. Questions or comments, please drop those down below. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Until next time, thanks.